We are going to go to our Keynote 4 that talks about engineering the future, frontier technologies, smart systems, and emerging infrastructure. That's going to be delivered by Abdullahi Alsamani, SpaceTech UAE. I'll invite Abdullah to please come right on to the rostrum and get ready for his presentation. Please put your hands together for him as he comes right up while we prepare his citation.
Abdullahi Alsamani is a UAE-based satellite systems engineer and space tech entrepreneur who is redefining how emerging economies engage with frontier technology. As co-founder and CEO of SpacePoint Space, he leads an enterprise focused on democratizing satellite and aerospace education, making deep tech disciplines accessible to students and institutions across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Abdullah bridges deep tech engineering with scalable educational and commercialization models, demonstrating that frontier technologies are not confined to wealthy nations, but can be developed and deployed from emerging innovation ecosystems. His work spans satellite design, STEM curriculum development, and the creation of commercially viable pathways for space-adjacent technologies. At the summit, he represents the intersection of deep tech ambition and emerging market execution, offering a model for how universities can engage with frontier engineering disciplines. Abdullahi Alsamani's participation introduces the frontier engineering dimension to the summit, expanding the conversation beyond software and AI into deep tech commercialization. His model of converting complex engineering disciplines into accessible, scalable educational and commercial products directly mirrors BIV's ambition to connect academic research with venture-ready outputs. His UAE perspective also reinforces the summit's global orientation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to present to you Abdullahi Alsamani, co-founder and CEO, SpacePoint Space.
Hello everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, when I saw the video that Nikki had yesterday, I was jealous. But now I'm happy they pulled amazing photos, to be honest. And I'm very happy that the slides are here. I hope they continue with us. So, to start, I'll dive into satellites. Where should I point it? Here? Okay. Okay, perfect. So, to start, what is a satellite? A satellite is an object that orbits another object in space. We have two main examples of satellites. The first is our moon as a natural satellite, and as well as other planets' moons. Now, the other example is artificial satellites, the ones we talk about every day. Now, if you've attended the session yesterday, you might find some aspects overlapping, but I wanted to give a general overview of space and satellites before diving into the applications, as well as giving you glimpses of a young man's journey. So, back in the days, we used to know that basically satellites are very large. But, can you guess what's the smallest satellite we can have? With a show of you can present it with your hands. Yeah, I can see a large one there. Yeah, small ones. Yeah, exactly. So, back in the days, we used to have satellites that are very large, more than 1,000 kilograms, and now we still have them, but these are usually for government missions or larger missions. Now, medium satellites are 500 to 1,000 kilograms, and then small satellites category starts from 350 until 1 kilogram. So exactly the size of your hand, 10 centimeter times 10 times 10. And CubeSats, when they got introduced, they opened a lot of opportunities because we can use them in various aspects, such as remote sensing and climate monitoring, and as well as secure communications. But we'll dive into these aspects further. But to tell you more about CubeSats, as I said, we have cubes that are almost the size of a Rubik's Cube, slightly larger. And they can be stacked up to 24 units and sometimes even 32 units. So, what does that mean? The introduction of CubeSats started, let's say, around 20 years ago. And the nice thing is that we've seen a lot of students, whether university students primarily or researchers, and now even school students dive into the aspect of building and launching their own satellites for several reasons. One of the reasons is that if we're building for space, most probably we're building for the harshest environment. So we'll understand the electronics, we'll understand the mechanical aspects, as well as how to do communication with such distance. So in terms of the types of satellites, in terms of functionality, so the first is communication. So communication satellites have different use cases. One of them, we use them in now I've seen while I'm coming that we also have it, and I'm very happy that we still have the dishes. So the dish that we have above our houses that communicates directly with a satellite to have the TV broadcasting aspect. We use them for radios, as well as most recently, they're used for internet connectivity. So Starlink, with the introduction of Starlink, it has changed how the scene looks like, because now we have satellite-based Wi-Fi, much more reliable than the cables that we have generally. Now, the other aspect is GPS. When GPS, I don't just mean Google Maps, the one that we use on our phones, but rather GPS that is embedded within cars, within ships, as well as within airplanes. And the next one is Earth observation. That has a lot of examples, but one of them is climate monitoring, as well as identifying any climate change, effects of climate change that would help us predict it before it happens. So basically we can have preventive aspects because we're taking it from space rather than going and checking it out ourselves. And it's very widely used in countries that usually face wildfires. So in Australia, to be specific, they depend on it really well. In the US also, they depend on it in this specific use case. Also, we have satellites that are used for scientific missions to observe other planets as well as the universe in general. So one of them is Hubble Space Telescope, well known. Around 30 years ago, it was launched. After that, James Webb came in. Now, in the UAE, we do have the Emirates Mars mission, Hope Probe, that went to discover Mars. There are several missions that are scientific-related missions, but also satellites are used for secure communication, as well as basically surveillance in general. So they have also a military use case, which makes it important for governments. Now, yesterday, during the session itself, I got a nice question where a great gentleman asked me, how can we use it in environmental sciences or in other aspects? And I remember I spoke with the dean of the environmental sciences department, and he spoke with me about the GIS or the role of GIS. And I'm happy that you use it here in Babcock University. So geographic information systems are used generally. So we get satellite images and then we analyze them to see different topographies and different aspects. And one of the use cases is basically logistics, to monitor logistics as well as oil spills or any challenges related to that, as well as having smart interconnected cities. So everyone is connected. That's not just through Wi-Fi, but also the autonomous vehicles and the rest of the things, just like what we've imagined. Back in the days, it was an imagination. Now we're seeing it as a reality. But with the recent introduction of ride sharing, and specifically SpaceX is leading with that. So ride sharing is the concept of having several satellites together on the same rocket. The traditional method was launching the rocket that is dedicated to launch one satellite into orbit. So the issue or the challenge with that was that actually we're spending hundreds of millions to launch that rocket for just this specific satellite. So you can expect that, okay, we're spending hundreds of millions on the rocket and then tens of millions to build the satellite, which is typically large. And this makes the entry barrier very huge. However, now satellites became much more smaller, as well as we have the ride sharing option. So with the SpaceX Falcon 9, it was around 121 satellites on the specifically on Transporter 12 of Falcon 9. It was 121 satellites on the rocket itself, which means that a lot of students got the chance to launch their own satellites. A lot of startups dived into the industry, and this creates a streamlined entry to the field. So we have different examples from the UAE where we've used satellites and by entities that are not space related. So we have several space related entities. One of them that I worked in myself, the National Space Science and Technology Center. However, we have DMSat-1 that was launched by Dubai municipality. So the municipality itself launched a satellite in order to check the environmental aspects, specifically the greenhouse gases and the air pollutants. Another entity such as DEWA, which is the Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, they launched 2 satellites, and the main goal was to provide the connectivity internally. So instead of a person going to each of their stations to check out the energy generation as well as the status of the crops and these aspects, they just connected it through an IoT system, LoRa-based communication, and they directly relayed the signal through their satellites. Now, there is one constraint that they had, is that their satellites were at the low Earth orbit. And the low Earth orbit is just around 500 kilometers above us. And if we dive in, I'll dive into the technicalities of the low Earth orbit, but generally speaking, the low Earth orbit gives us 4 passes approximately per day. So we see the satellite 4 times per day. So you need a group of them. And this is why Starlink has thousands of satellites in orbit to provide the continuous connectivity, because basically they will relay the signal among their satellites. On the Falcon 9 Transporter 12 itself, we had 3 missions. And this is all due to the ride sharing aspect. And these 3 missions, starting from MBZ-SAT-1, which is a 700 kilogram satellite, it's used for Earth observation, developed by Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, one of the space centers that we have in the UAE. Another mission was FCT-SAT-1, where 30 students came together to build a satellite just like this, exactly the same size, as you can see. And the nice thing is that it gave them the confidence to dive into the industry. So when students got the chance to work on an actual satellite mission during their studies, they went after that and they had much more confidence to build systems from scratch. Instead of buying systems, they've developed it themselves. So as we've heard in the previous keynotes as well as the previous discussions, it's all about developing our technologies in-house. Whether it's in the Middle East, in Africa, or in any other continent, developing technologies in-house gives us the flexibility to change specific metrics without having to basically spend a lot on the R&D process again and again and again, because basically we are iterating on what we have. Plus, it builds human capability. Now, the third mission is an ASAT. And I always ask the same question. Does this guy look like me? So basically that was 4 years ago when I first joined the industry, and then this was when we prepared the satellite for launch. So the satellite development process specifically for Al-ASAT took around 4 years from the finalizing the conceptualization aspect and setting the mission requirements until working with the different teams. So we worked with 3 universities with their students: Universitat Politécnica de Catalunya in Spain, with Telkom University in Indonesia, as well as we had international students from Africa who worked with through Kyushu Institute of Technology in Japan on the mission itself. So the nice thing is that during the mission itself, we had an L-band radiometer which checks soil moisture from space, as well as we had a camera that checks the vegetation analysis in general. And among all of that, it was a nice journey overall, and now I'll dive into the journey itself. But before that, this was the image of basically the last photo we had with the satellite before launching it to the broker, or basically shipping it to the broker that integrated it within the SpaceX Falcon 9. And this was few weeks after the launch itself. Can you identify the difference between both photos? What's the difference between both photos? There is a slight difference between them, other than the clothes we're wearing. Yes, other than the management taking most of the photos and they're sitting in the middle. Now, something deeper. In our facial expressions. Can you see it now? So exactly. In this one, we were smiling and super excited because we were about to launch our city's first satellite. So we were literally writing history. And there, it was done. So for us, it was like, okay, we worked hard, we did it, and then after that, what's next? So I didn't realize the phrase of actually enjoy the journey, not the destination, until I actually saw the comparison between both photos. To be honest, I actually had both photos for maybe 10, 20 presentations before I realized that there is actually a comparison between them, an actual comparison. So at the beginning, it was just intended to show basically that, okay, we're preparing the satellite, we're launching it. But then I realized that, yes, it's all about the journey itself, and this reflects directly to the students. The university journey is hard, but whenever you reach, you find other struggles. So just enjoy it, just like the amazing act we saw a few minutes ago. So now the UAE's vision itself has 3 main missions set, and this shows a full vision of a country. Now, the Explorer, or the Emirates mission to the asteroids belt, which is scheduled in 2028, involved a lot of students. Around 40 fresh graduates got involved in the mission itself. The next mission is the Lunar Gateway, and the Artemis 2 was basically one of the few stepping stones towards the Lunar Gateway of basically having a similar international space station in space. But also at the same time, we have the vision of having the first human settlement on the red planet. And if you ask me, will I go to space? No, I'm not a fond of space a lot, but I'm fond of the challenges we have before going to space. So whatever we're doing in terms of identifying specific metrics that we have to fix and other aspects. But why is the 2117 vision important? Because basically it shows you that it's not just 2028, 2030, but there will be other missions in between. So that's what I've seen, that it's a nice thing to see basically government visions set, and maybe having the vision 2030, 2040 and these visions, but also at the same time having a specific key milestone on these years, which shows you what to work towards. So, okay, if we're saying we're going to Mars, then we have a lot of challenges before that. We have to work on the food that we need on Mars, and actually, basically, a lot of technologies that we have nowadays came from space. So, the first computer, the smallest computer, why did it become smaller? Because it went on the Apollo missions. So due to the Apollo missions, the personal computer became smaller because they wanted to send a computer on it. Hydroponics, if I'm not mistaken, were developed because of the International Space Station, because astronauts wanted to eat food and they didn't have soil then to basically plant it. So basically the hydroponics system started from there. And a lot of technologies were built for space and then adapted on Earth. So it's not just building for something fancy, but use cases that we can implement on ground. Now, during my journey itself, I started as a fresh graduate, didn't know what to study next. So I finished my degree in electrical engineering, had no clue what I will study tomorrow, or basically work on tomorrow. So by coincidence, I applied for a master's degree in space science. And during that, I got the chance to get an internship and then work at the National Space Science and Technology Center. So these were the first few photos where I was pretending that basically I know what I'm doing here. After that, and even this was still pretending. So I worked with amazing engineers during that. Ahmed, for example, the one on the left, he went and worked in the Electric and Water Authority. So he didn't just stay in the space field. After that, got his experiences. Now he's implementing it in another field. Khalid, for example, joined the Emirates mission to the asteroids belt. So then he joined a larger mission. I myself, I stayed in the same place where I believed in that I wanted to continue it, especially that we were developing our own onboard computer. So I completed my master's degree working on an onboard computer, adapting GPUs to it, so basically advanced processing. And this is where the AI aspect comes into place, where we're in the space industry currently, we're building space data centers in space, as well as using image processing or edge computing on the satellite itself. So we don't just download the data and then filter it out on Earth. We get it filtered in space before receiving it, which gives us better quality of data before downloading it, because we have the issue of communication. Now, during that, I worked hard and worked out my way, but this photo, I don't think it's very clear, but the thing is that this was one of the boards that I've developed, and we manufactured it we were associated with UAE University, one of the biggest universities, if not the oldest university in the UAE. So I manufactured a board, and then I realized that I did a mistake in the design. So either I throw it or I find a way to fix it. So I spoke to Abu Bakr, which is on the back side. He's our mechanical lead, and he is my co-founder currently at SpacePoint. I told him, Abu Bakr, I have an issue with the board. What can I do? Shall I throw it? He said, la, Abdullah. You can actually use a drill and basically increase the size of the holes, and then you can fix it. So I was super excited while I was tinkering and figuring out how to fix my own board. And from there, we stopped the basically joking around thing and the nice fancy photos. We dived into the actual work. In the actual work, it's no longer 8 hours work. It became 22 hours, literally. So what happened is that during the final stages of the satellite, the final 3 months, we were preparing the ground station. I became the ground station lead, or basically the satellite ground station lead, communicating with the satellite, and worked with a different team. So it was, yes, the project manager was there and the rest of the team was involved, but I had to work with a different team who are the ground station team. And during that, this photo, the time is 2 a.m. So literally we used to come at 9 a.m. and sometimes stay until 2. The record for me was 22 hours. Abu Bakr so we had lunch, of course, and dinner and breakfast, all at work. But Abu Bakr hit a 26 hours record at work. So what happened is that we needed to do all of the testing and ensure it's done before the next day, before the next team comes and do the testing, the actual testing. But the nice thing that we learned is that if you're going towards a specific innovation, and this implies on everyone who's building a startup or something. I thought basically at work, what we are doing is a miracle. Wow, 22 hours, 26 hours, amazing. But when you're a startup founder, most probably you'll have to work on your startup all day long and then study the rest of the day and figure out the mixture between both in order to succeed and get things done. Now, then at the end of it, we go back to the images. This was when we integrated the satellite within the launch pod, and these are how the launch pods look like. So there are 12 units in terms of size approximately. These were by ExoLaunch, and then we integrated them on board the Falcon 9 rocket itself. And in parallel, okay, perfect. In parallel, I found a gap. The gap was, I remembered when I was a school student. When I was a school student, I was good in my studies. When I graduated, I got the chance to choose one of few majors, whether it's medicine, engineering, business. I had no clue what to study, but my parents have chosen engineering for me and one of the specific engineering fields. However, no matter how I tried, I didn't feel that I fit in within that major because I never knew what will I study in that major before going. Then I shifted my major. No, I didn't fail. Then I shifted my major itself to electrical engineering. But I faced the same issue when I graduated. I didn't know what to study. And then I chose space science. But then, okay, I found my passion in space science. But I had no clue what will we do in space science. I understood that through space science, I can still go for a PhD in electrical engineering. And I said, okay, that's good. That's more than enough for me. But the thing is that this led to the creation of SpacePoint, which is the startup that I'm working on, where we teach students how to build satellites, just like the size of this, by going through the electrical integration aspect, mechanical assembly, and software testing. And as you can see, these are some of the workshops and programs that we run. They start from 12 years old students, and then they expand to university students or fresh graduates. And that's usually, this is how we built our methodology. Our methodology was basically getting our students become our instructors. So instead of getting experts in the field, we do have few experts other than our board of advisors, other than people who had experiences in the field directly. We wanted to build their experience for one aspect. And this relates directly with what's happening basically in the Middle Eastern region and Africa. We don't need to unlearn things. We can build and propel ourselves into the future. So that's the nice thing. These engineers, when we give them the methodology we have, because when you're an engineer in the field, most probably you have only your technical words. You don't know how to give examples of, unless a few of us actually can do that, but I've realized that they can't give a technical, non-technical or basically a technical presentation to a non-technical audience. So the nice thing about these youth is that they got the chance to study it for the first time, try it out for the first time. They had the SpacePoint methodology in their mind, and they continued and developed their own systems in general. So the concept itself goes around the SAT kit or MP kit. We have two kits. One that is recently developed. This is the recently developed one. The SAT kit itself, the main challenge we had, and we still have it, and we are using it, but the main challenge we had is that we have to manufacture part of it abroad. But the nice thing is that with the MP kit, we can approximately get 80% of it manufactured in-house and just get the main components imported, because basically they get developed in other countries. But this increases the in-country manufacturing in general, and this aligns directly with what we do in the UAE, and we wanted to have the same thing in other countries in general, where we equip it with detailed documentation, interactive workshops and programs, as well as competitions and training of trainers who are just like our amazing students who became trainers and amplified our efforts. And we do it usually through three types of workshops: a short workshop, a medium tier workshop that gets them into subsystems development, as well as the full satellite development journey, which is around 24 hours. And it usually looks like this. And that's what we were discussing and pitching to the guys. Basically, if we'd love to see this happening in Babcock, where it's like a lab that has its own 3D printers, but also its own satellite benches. This was implemented with the UAE Space Agency in one of the competitions we had in November last year, where students came together and created their own mission. Can you turn on the video, please? I'm not sure if I could. Video. Yeah, if you click on the screen, I guess it will work. I don't know if I'll click here, it will work or not. Then okay, it's fine, we'll just skip it. Okay, so that was a video of how the process looks like, but that's so fine. Now this is how the implement looks like. So it's we designed and 3D print most of the parts for it to be the mounting aspect of it, and then the connections happen internally until reaching the full basically integrated and mechanically assembled satellite. So during that, we were very happy that we reached more than 2,000 students trained until date, where the thing that I was very interested in and the team was very interested in is seeing them pursue their careers in the field. Because we've seen in the edtech sector, everyone teaches, and that's nice, but it's all about the results. Where do they go? So we were glad to see some of them go for right PhDs, directly from a bachelor to a PhD in distinguished universities such as Khalifa University in the UAE. And then others secured internships and jobs at organizations, whether in the UAE or abroad. So for example, one of the people went, Halima to be specific, one of our students, she went to Ericsson. Ericsson is not in the space industry, but they're working in the telecommunications in general. So she implemented what she learned in the satellite development industry directly in what she went to. Others, for example, like Sami, went to the US, to Amazon Robotics. So it was nice to see a blend of the students who worked in the space industry in the UAE and abroad. Now, what does this mean? In general, what we've realized that in most of our countries, we usually have access to hardware, but we need to understand if the hardware is enough or not. Because what we see is that if we go and buy hardware from abroad, it will be very expensive because it's space qualified, radiation hardened, and these things. But will you actually need radiation hardened components? That's the aspect that really distinguishes between the knowledge that is available on the internet, but also the experiences that are gained. And I gave an example yesterday of a guy who actually developed a space data center, spent a lot of money on the first satellite, but then realized, I asked him, I told him, but how will you solve the communication? If you developed your own satellite, how will you do the proper communication? He said, actually, we subscribe to Starlink. So imagine they're having a space data center in space, subscribing directly to Starlink, so they're having connectivity always. So you can directly get access to your data without them having a lot of satellites around you. And the guy was 20 years old, which is very impressive to see basically students coming with this creativity, and he never went to university. But the thing is that he just basically utilized what he have in his ecosystem, and it's really a blessing to be in a university, but also an innovative university or an innovative ecosystem around you. So that's the best time to try and tinker things. And the other aspect is that talents are there, but it's all about the bridge of the talents knowing what's the potential that is in front of them, what they can achieve in general. So the concept itself includes the students, of course. You, the students, you are always in the middle of everything. But then after that, the students have the hands-on experience and understand the engineering mindset of it. And at the end of it, basically the graduates will become founders. Founders doesn't just mean that basically you will find your own startup. Yesterday, I spoke to one of my team members, and she was always saying, so I had a panel discussion in Abu Dhabi, but I missed it to be here, and I'm very happy to be here. So she said, I would never go for a panel discussion because I'm not a founder. I said, no. Actually, there is the concept of entrepreneurs, but there is a concept of intrapreneurs. So you can still have the same entrepreneurial mindset within the organization you work with. You don't need to go and dive into the entrepreneurship industry and go open your own startup and leave everything behind you and sleep on a couch. But you can still create a great impact while you're still an employee in an organization. And I've seen it myself. Leading a project or basically bringing ideas to the organization and thinking of it as if it's your own startup would really propel you as a person, but also propel the whole ecosystem, because you can create much larger impacts. So if you're a person who doesn't want to risk and open a startup, still you can create a huge impact while being in an organization and working with people through it. And of course, using the lessons learned and the things that people, these engineers or founders understood to dive into several industries such as agri-tech, climate tech, even gov-tech in general, the government technologies. And tapping into the same aspect that I mentioned, the nice thing is that we don't need to erase the legacy space infrastructure. We can directly go to the edge AI paradigm and the newest technologies from now. And that's the nice thing about our nations in general. We've seen the same thing in the UAE. We never had the legacy space infrastructure and how things are built. Our first few missions, yes, were legacy, but then after that we directly moved to CubeSats and new space standards, which are much easier. And I can see the same thing happening now. We've seen it in several countries in Africa also. And Nigeria has 2 satellites, if I'm not mistaken, even more in space already, but these are the large satellites. But the question is, when will the first CubeSat of Nigeria be launched? So this is the core of it. In general, we've seen it happen, and what I believe is that what we need is that, yes, there is the lab aspect where students understand the basics of what they need. You already have an established ecosystem. We've seen the amazing presentations and how basically startups are enabled and the opportunities that are available. And I guess the launch of BIV is a great example of the opportunities that you will get. And of course, it's all about partnerships. Well, we already seen policymakers come in, and we have investors in the ecosystem itself, or even you can put foreigners abroad, of course, and then the academia to all scale the ecosystem. And just before concluding, yesterday I saw that the students are very interested during the track itself, so I'm actually showing it again. So we actually launched our online course for the first time after trying it for 2 years. We launched an online course, and we are having a special discount just for basically the attendees of the conference, or basically Babcock University students. So please feel free to check it out and check out the modules. You can already see the modules themselves. The aspects that are included are the satellite subsystems and generally an introduction to space and satellites. So during the course itself, you understand different applications of satellites, but also the deep dive into each subsystem, which are the electrical power system, the command and data handling system, which is a computer, as well as the attitude and determination and control system, and of course the communication system, launch and operation process, etc. And please feel free to share it with your friends. We are opening it for just a few weeks with this code. After that, we'll go back to the normal price we have, and it is actually now harder, but the code is just exclusively for the conference itself. Now, this concludes the presentation itself. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions beyond the session itself. And these are my contact details. We'd love to connect with you. And one last request, please. So this one includes our Instagram page. And our marketing manager, Fatima, is always happy whenever we get new followers. Whenever I go to a conference and I don't get new followers, she says, Abdullah, most probably your presentation wasn't good. So this is my rating in general. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it and learned from it. Looking forward to seeing you.
We some kings with the crown. And my girl with me now, my girl. And she loves